Hello, welcome back to the channel, and today I have a simple question for all of you. When are the critics wrong? This question has been living in my brain for a while, but I never acted upon it until Black Adam came out back in October of 2022, at this time of filming anyway. If you're watching this like 4 years, that's gonna be weird for me to say that. And I saw that Black Adam had a 37% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, yet an 88% critic audience score on the same website, obviously, Rotten Tomatoes. But then it became even more apparent when I saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie back in April, again at this time of filming. And my fucking jaw just bang. Like a 1930s cartoon character, or The Mask, when I saw it had a 50, what did I write down? 57%. Yeah, I have the script right open here. This is the first time ever scripting a video, but yeah. It had a 57% critic score, yet a 95% audience score. So I wanted to look at the instances where the critics are wrong. But let's back up and hold the phone. First off, we should probably explain to those who either don't know a whole bunch about critics, or for people who don't know what critics are at all. So, a critic is a person who reviews movies and posts those reviews on places like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Letterboxd, so forth and so on. There's a whole bunch of other websites that catalog stuff like this. And if you want my personal opinion of which one I think is the best, I'd personally choose IMDb, because I think they're way more fair than Rotten Tomatoes, but not as fucking coked out and crazy as like Letterboxd, because some of the reviews on Letterboxd are pretty insane. But yeah, and there's also some critics who post their reviews in video form on YouTube, and I wrote in the script to mention a few examples. So we have obviously the Nostalgia Critic, fucking Doug Walker. Then we got Chris from 3C Films. There's a few more. Technically, you could put, like, there's a lot more, but I'm just bringing those two up. But what of most we will be discussing in this video is mainly Rotten Tomatoes, because in doing research while writing this script, I found that a lot of instances where most people genuinely believe the critics are wrong is on Rotten Tomatoes. You don't hear a lot about that on IMDb or Letterboxd or the other thing, or any of the other things. So, and of course, before we begin, obviously, this is just my personal opinion with what I believe critics are wrong. And if you agree, and of course, if you agree with any of the critics in this video, that's okay. You can have your own film opinion. I'm just here to share mine, so. But without further ado, let's go! To start off, whenever you look at a Rotten Tomatoes scores for most action movies, genuinely what you're gonna see is pretty fucking low, mid to low scores. But most audience scores are pretty up there, in the 60 to 90 range. For example, the original Top Gun from 1986 having a 58% critic score, but an 83% audience score. Then, an example from just last year, at the time of filming, Uncharted, which had a 41% critic score, but a 90% audience score. Now, personally, I'm not huge on either of these two movies. I just wrote them in for examples on action movies, but I definitely believe they're better than what the critics said they were. But yeah. And of course, we have the heavy-hitting franchises. Your Fast and the Furious, your Transformers, which most of those movies have pretty fucking low critic scores and pretty high audience scores. Now, personally, like, I'm not huge on these franchises. In total, I'm not huge on action movies in general, so most of the time I'd agree with the critics in this instance, but there's but I know a lot of people who do love action movies, including my own parents, the person editing this video, Michael. He fucking loves the Transformers movies, and I enjoy them. I'm just not huge on them. But yes, to bring up, a lot of action movies have low critic scores but high audience scores. Now, I think the reason why critics tend to not like action movies as much as the audiences do is pretty simple. And that being, a lot of action movies, and again, this isn't just action movies, this can go into superhero movies as well, is that they're just too similar to each other. They're just too samey. And if you're a movie critic who has to see new movies as a job, like, if you don't do this, you're gonna get fucking fired. It's probably gonna get boring over and over again just watching, like, 2-hour-long movies that are very similar. So, that, in my opinion, is why I think action movies get so low critic scores. But again, to an audience, they're just here for the action. But now, I want to move on to the more interesting topic. Now, I think the reason why kids' movies is more interesting to talk about in terms of critics is because, well, kids' movies are a mixed bag for both critics and audiences. You have instances where the critics and the audiences shout in applause and fucking love it. Like, of course, Puss in Boots and Last Wish, which, the movie was fantastic. Check out my video on that if you want to. But then you have the instances where the critics loved it, but the audiences didn't. Like, Spy Kids from 2001, which I think that had like a 90-something%, but in critics, but a 40% audience.
Hello everyone, I'm going to be talking about how memes affect movie reviews. They have a way of reflecting how, like, critiquing and stuff like that, or critiquing the movie and how do I say this? Just making fun of, poking fun of it. And it's very contagious because the Morbius stuff, it led producers to believe that it was an actual really good movie, so they released it in the box office again. And again, it failed in the box office. So, one of the ways is very powerful in conveying its, like, messages type thing. Because of the way Morbius happened, like, into the Spider-Verse. It could also lead expectations, as I'm going off now. People can get expectations off of a movie because of the memes. So I had the expectation that the Spider-Man movie is going to be a really good movie because of the memes I've seen of it. And I've seen memes that Elemental, that new movie, is trash, and I'm now led to presume that the new Elemental movie is going to be very, very bad. They have a way of conveying it, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but they do it. Some producers and stuff like that are doing mimetic, like, programs, advertisements to get people like haha funny. That's like what Disney's doing with Elemental right now. But I have one criticism with that, and yes, this is funny because we're talking about how critics are bad and stuff like that, but they're just not funny. Like, when they say about cancel culture and stuff like that, or say something about the offensive stuff, it's just not funny. Like, I know this is a series, not movies, going off of that. Like Clone High, the first Clone High was so funny, because it had no filter. But the second one is like cancel culture this, cancel culture that, happened, everything that happened in the century, blah blah blah. I would rather watch a paint on a wall drying than watch Clone High 2. That's my honest opinion. See you guys.
I think there is a unique precedent when critics like something and audiences hate it. I think, and I do bring up something like that later, but I think it's more, I go into depth with that now. So, as I mentioned, Spy Kids is something critics loved, but audiences hated. And I think a lot of why critics find so many movies to be good, while the same movies are hated by audiences, well, general audiences anyway. Of course, there's those audience members that love them anyway. Is personally, and again, I do break this down later, and that is intrigue and difference. Okay, let me rephrase that. It's generally the movies that have high critic scores but low audience scores are typically movies that are unique, different, something out of the realm of normality. In the example of Spy Kids, the first Spy Kids is a fucking fever dream of weird shit. But it also has a lot of character and heart from what I remember it being. But and those two ideas do mesh well in the film, so I think that's why critics liked it, while audiences just couldn't get into it. Now, going into something like a little more controversial, Netflix's pedo movie. I don't want to say the actual name of this movie because it's disgusting and I'd rather you not look it up, but there's plenty of other videos about it. But yeah, critics gave that a fucking high score, fucking gross pedos, but while audiences knowingly hated it. So yeah, that's kind of all I want to address on that movie. But to get an actual recent example, we have Peter Pan and Wendy, which came out on Disney Plus this year at the time of filming. Peter Pan and Wendy, just as a quick blood bag review for that movie is awful. It is bad. It lacks so much of the heart and soul that was in the original Peter Pan because Disney likes going corporate. I haven't even seen Elemental yet, but I heard that's flopping like fucking flopping like shitty hotcakes. But yeah, but again, like I said, in my opinion, Peter Pan and Wendy was heartless and soulless and just wasn't nowhere near as good as the original. But critics liked it because they found the opposite. And yeah, in a way, critics, I don't want to say are more intelligent than the general audience, because that's not fucking true. But but again, a lot of it... Okay, let me rephrase here. I'm going off script, but have you ever heard the term, the eye of the beholder? I mean, if you're in an English class, you might have heard of it. The term, the eye of the beholder, is something explaining that something that looks like a piece of shit to someone can look like a beautiful fucking piece of art to somebody else. And a lot of that is why critics, there's a lot of movies that critics love but audiences hate. It's all in that eye of the beholder. To bring up Star Wars: The Last Jedi, that has like a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I think it's like a 40% audience score. And personally, I'm in the middle with that movie. I like part of it. I hate parts of it. But audiences thought it destroyed the franchise. Audiences thought it sucked a donkey dick. But critics saw something else. They saw a different type of story. Personally, like I said, I'm in the middle with that movie. But it's another example of the eye of the beholder. Now, let's get back to the script. Jesus Christ, I went on a tangent there. But yes. But, of course, there are the instances with kids' movies where everybody hates it. Like Pinocchio. No, not that Pinocchio. No, not the good one from the 40s. This Pinocchio. Michael, make sure you put the posters of the Pinocchios I'm talking about, so people understand. Anyway, but going back to the whole critics love it, audiences hate it thing, we have Turning Red from last year at the time of filming. So Turning Red is an interesting example where critics loved it, but audiences were a bit in the middle with it. And like I said, I think that is in the difference category. Because Turning Red is a very different kind of movie than what most people would expect. A lot of people could expect it was like kind of like a, I mean, it is a coming of age story, but like, I mean, what's the word I'm thinking here? God. Okay, no, people were expecting a family-friendly kind of, well, like a nice, cute kind of adventure story. But what it actually was a coming-of-age story of a girl who's entering her teens and has to explore that with the metaphor of it being like a werewolf kind of thing with a red panda. Like, the entire story is a metaphor for someone becoming a teenager. And a lot of audiences, frankly, got really upset with some of the shit that was in it. Frankly, I don't give a shit. I think that's fine to be in a kids movie. But I know there's definitely some people who are like, no, that shouldn't be in a kids movie. But, you know, it's life. There's definitely people who are going through that right now that still like Disney. But yeah, and that's probably a lot of why audiences didn't care for it as much, is because of how it was very different from what most people were expecting. Because that is a huge fucking thing that, if you want to piss some audiences off, fucking mislead them, Jesus Christ. Morbius started a goddamn flame war when that movie came out, and it was so inaccurate to what the trailers were promising. My God. I made an entire video fucking reviewing that movie, just giving a plot synopsis of that movie. God, that video is a year old now. Oh my God. But yeah. Anyway. But personally, I think on the whole with kids movies, and that fucking tangent I made with when critics like something and audiences hate it, on the whole, it's a mixed bag, like I said at the start of this section. Because, well, kids movies can be up to interpretation from anybody. They're made for children. But again, there are movies that break the mold for and try to be something for the family or for adults. Like I said, Turning Red was definitely a family movie. Unlike something like Super Mario, where that felt a little more kid-ish. Again, adults could sit down and watch the Mario movie and get something out of it, but it's definitely more of a kid thing. I'm not diminishing kids movies. Some of the best movies ever made are kids movies. So, but I think it's time I let my editor, Michael, give his own personal take on this whole topic. Take it away, buddy.
Thank you, Garrett. Now let's roll my part of the tape. Hello, in this section I'm going to talk about how politics and controversies can affect a film's rating. But first, let's start with why people tend to get defensive on controversial topics. I'm not going to go into detail, but I am going to make a brief explanation about it. Basically, people often associate their worldview with their identity, and to go against or to disprove said worldview can feel like an attack to that person. If you want to read more about this, then you can access the links in the description of this video. Anyways, that's why if a film sets its foot into politics, it will affect a film's rating in a negative way. Thank you, editing Michael. You're welcome, recording Michael. Now back to Garrett.
Alright. Thank you, Michael, for giving that very interesting perspective on that. in conclusion, I think the reason why there's such a divide between critics and audiences on certain movies, it can be broken down into two things. One, how similar the movie is. If movies have similar aspects about them to each other, then critics probably aren't going to give them a high score. Going back to the action movies, a lot of action movies are too similar. Action movies, superhero movies are super similar, so critics tend to not give them high scores. Unless you're Marvel. Then critics are going to suck your dick. Because most of the Marvel movies have good scores, except Eternals and Ant-Man 3. Then, 2 is personal interest and the whole eye of the beholder thing. So technically it'd be 3 things, but yeah. If a critic isn't even interested in the movie they're watching, they're not going to give it a high score. And if a critic doesn't care, and if a critic doesn't like something, but an audience does, that's the eye of the beholder. The critic just sees it as a pile of shit, while the audiences see it as a pile of gold. Or vice versa. The critic sees it as a pile of gold, but the audience sees it as a pile of shit. But all in all, it's a very interesting topic that I'm very happy I finally got around to talking about. Because, again, there are so many movies that I've seen that I absolutely love. Like, most of the shit I have over in my horror collection, have pretty fucking negative scores. But the thing is, I absolutely love most of the movies in that collection, regardless of their critic score. So, I think this is a very obvious answer to why it's just all in your personal opinion. Again, it's a very basic answer. It's probably one you could see coming, but like I said, it's 3 things. How similar a movie can be, how interested a critic is in watching it, and the eye of the beholder. So, yeah, that's my take on explaining why critics are wrong in some cases. But, now I just want to quickly thank my editor, Michael, for editing this video together. I also want to briefly thank MatPat, from, Game Theory, Film Theory, Food Theory, Style Theory. I want to thank him because he made a video talking about what he thinks critics are wrong, and I use that video as kind of a basis for the research. So I'll give credit to Matthew on some of the points I have in this video. And Michael, if you want to, you can flash his video right here, and I'll try to link it. But if I can't, don't get mad at me. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you enjoyed my content, and I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.